open border, crime in our streets, innocents murdered by illegals, skyrocketing costs, Americans abandoned during disasters, and we're on the brink of World War III. A broken oath and a broken America. Kamala can't be trusted in the Oval Office.
That, her message was clear enough and maybe she was able to differentiate herself enough from Biden in terms of this.
No, not at all. In fact, I think most people who are really like the political animals and really paying close attention to this know that Harris is just a continuation of the Biden policies. First of all, she never had time to put together a policy packet that would differentiate in the time that she had available after she was to become the candidate. And since then, it's been the same talking points, the same results. And frankly, she's admitted, as has Biden, that she was there for all of these key decisions. Last one in the room, people remember that. And the border czar, people do remember that. So it's a continuation, frankly, of the Biden administration if Harris were to be there. And I think people know that. The question will be, is that a good thing for them or a bad thing for them? And that's how they're going to cast their vote.
Colonel, we have like a minute left. I know during the break before you were telling me that you were getting information from different polling locations around the country, from contacts of yours. What are you hearing, and what do you think it tells us at this point? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, similar to the mail-in and early voting, it's the polling locations are flooded with a lot more people than they expected. And you can take that either direction, like who's there. Is it evenly split? Is it predominantly one or the other? But I'm an election judge, and I'm directly tied in, of course, to my polling location in my home state of Montana. But I'm getting from other places around Montana, other states around the country, that people are showing up, and they're just shocked by double the numbers that they're used to. We don't know where that leads numerically. In the end analysis of all this will be extremely interesting, but there's this sense, I think, across the nation that there's just a big shift in alliances and the coalitions and who's working together. The end will determine who wins, of course, but it's fascinating to hear it all.
Yeah, and of course, it's from what you're hearing from your contacts. It's not from our on-the-ground reporters or election officials, but that pulse on the ground. Mike, what have you been hearing so far in terms of that pulse of early voters, of voters on the ground, election day?
Yeah, no, similar to what he was just saying. I mean, you just see folks at different polling locations across the different states. Obviously, I'm from this state. I live in a red state in Florida. And I mentioned before, we have not only a few big ballot initiatives on the state, but we have a key Senate race with Rick Scott and Debbie Marcel Powell, and obviously up the top of the ticket. So you're seeing more people starting to show up as the polling places have opened at 6:30, 7 a.m. We were showing before earlier the times of all these different states. You're getting texts from people in these battleground states. Hey, a lot more people are showing up here to the polling location. Hopefully, we have enough staff to be able to handle all of these folks. But to what Darren was mentioning before, the early vote number was down total-wise over these last, cycles from this right now. So maybe it gets made up because remember, 156 million people voted in 2020, and we had a pandemic that we were going through. Maybe this in-person, this procrastination vote, let's call it, because people waited until November 5th. Now they're showing up. Maybe it makes up for it, and maybe we get closer to that number, and that's going to be good for, I believe, both campaigns.
Right. And possibly not that long to wait anymore until we can find out. And we will just interrupt right here for a little bit. We'll pick up soon again. We're heading to a break now. The balance of power is on the line tonight with hundreds of congressional races. What to watch in key congressional races with NTD's congressional correspondent, Melina Lyska, when we come back.
China and Russia. Do you think the country is heading into the right direction right now?
The economy, no. But as far as, maybe not so divided, I hope.
I just think we've been kind of in decline the last 3 to 4 years.
I think it is not.
It will be if Trump gets in. If it doesn't, if Harris wins, I don't know. For my grandkids, my grandkids, I'm very concerned about the future.
first. And watching Senate races in these states could give us early clues into how the balance of power is shaping up for the Senate. Republicans are likely to win West Virginia. If they're also looking good in Ohio, then that could be an indication that they've secured at least a bare bones majority. Other potential wins that will come later in the night in tight races, say in Michigan or Pennsylvania, would then become cushion to support that majority. But we also must remember to watch for early poll closings in Texas and Florida, because these big red states are what Democrats have prioritized, seeing them as the best opportunity to take seats from Republicans and potentially stop the Senate from flipping red. Now, polls in Montana close later, but it's also a key race to watch for the Senate, because this is another race where Republicans are favored to win, it being a state that Trump is very popular in. Now, over in the House, the path to 218 is less clear, and we'll likely have to wait until later in the night to get an indication of how the balance of power is looking for the House. That's because a hefty number of toss-up races are located on the coastlines of New York and California. Those polls close late at around 9 and 11 p.m. They're states where Republicans are very vulnerable. If Democrats are looking good in districts like, say, New York's 4th District or California's 22nd District, that could be a clear indication of some disruption on Republicans' path to the majority. But for early clues, we can watch poll closings in the Rust Belt. There are several Democrat-controlled seats in Pennsylvania and Michigan, for example, that Republicans are trying to flip. If Republicans are looking good in those key toss-up races, that could be an indication that their path to the majority looks strong. However, if Democrats are able to defend key seats like Pennsylvania's 8th District, a Trump popular district held by a longtime Democrat, as well as Michigan's 7th and 8th District, if Democrats look good in these key seats, that could indicate that Democrats' chances of taking the gavel look strong. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Be sure to tune in tonight with Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer at 6 p.m. Eastern for our Election Night live special coverage right here on NTD.
Thank you so much for tuning in now. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Chris Beers. In the next hour, we'll analyze which states to watch and what issues voters care about the most with our own data analyst and some expert guests. Don't go away.
He was holding his last campaign event in Michigan last night. This has become a tradition for the former president, who ended all previous campaigns in Michigan as well.
The state has the largest Arab American population in the U.S., many of whom are turning away from the Democratic Party over its support for Israel. Just like the other swing states, Michigan is expected to be a very close race.